Good morning. I think it's afternoon. Yeah, I'm Freddy Kwahome. I'm delighted and honored to be here as we have this very important conversation. I'm the Vice Chair at Kenya Cybersecurity and Forensic Association. Having practiced cybersecurity for at least now around 10 years, I also lead a team at Secunet Technologies where we provide solutions in cybersecurity and forensics as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Banchale Gufu from Communication Authority of Kenya. Specifically, I work at National SAT, that is Kenya Computer Incident Response Team Coordination Center. I have over 15 years in issues related to IT, then around 10 in cyber. So actually, I was even involved in setting up the SAT. I'm delighted. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to, fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Lewis. Good afternoon. Lewis Mereti, working with Microsoft as the Security, Compliance, and Identity Specialist. Excited to be here. Pleasure. Eric.
Good afternoon. So I have a brother called Eric who's in the exact same industry. We do the same things, and so he keeps saying Eric. And I'm George Kisaka. But no offense. So my name is George Kisaka. I work for Yellowcard Financial, which is a fintech in the crypto space and payment space, as the information security, governance, risk, and compliance lead. I've been in the risk and compliance, information security, basically risk and compliance space and audit space actually for the last 15 years across the insurance industry, the payment service providers industry, that is one of the telcos, and now in the fintech I'm in. Glad to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And as mentioned, I'm Boniface Asinigwa, Manager IT and Cybersecurity for Kenya Trade Network Agency, former Vice President of Isaka Kenya chapter. I also sit on the National Cybersecurity Techniques, the standard body, and advisory to the UN CFACT, the organization board dealing with cross-border trade, cybersecurity. So just to the discussion of the day today, I think we have a couple of few minutes, but I think we will manage the time effectively. I'll still start on my far left, on Wahome. There is this back and forth and the element of public involvement, private sector involvement in putting up regulation or setting up a legal regulatory framework. So how can organizations work together to create a legal framework that supports improved cybersecurity posture in an entity like, let's say, a country like Kenya?
Wow, thank you for that question. Also, allow me to contextualize the conversation from the association perspective, and also our relationship with the regulator who is here. We have a very symbiotic relationship with them, where they play their regulation role, and for us, apart from advocacy, we also help to build capacity for our members, and of course awareness within the public space. And how are we doing it so that we can be able to look at that? From the association perspective, okay, we have some regulations within the industry. We have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act. We have the Data Protection Act. We also have other documentations. We have National ICT Policy. We have National Digital Master Plan 2022 to 2032. We have the Digital Economy document that is out there. Now we have conversation around digital transformation. We have digitization. We have digitalization. And as we speak now, this morning, the BRS, which is the business registration system, the component of the registration within the e-citizen, it has been down for, I think, for It's about now 2 weeks where they were upgrading their systems, but something did not work out how it was supposed to do. So how we do it is we are trying to encourage evidence-based legislation per concept, and also innovation-driven regulation. In the interest of time, we are trying to encourage use of scientific information, scientific evidence, and also data, so that we can be able to see, are these regulations, are they going to result into innovation? Number one, are they going to inhibit, innovation? Reason being, if all these legislations, the frameworks, the standards, if they do not promote innovation within the ICT space, then the private sector is not going to thrive. The government comes on board. Their work is to make sure they provide a level playing ground. They are going to be frustrated. And when you also come to other industry sector players, they are also going to be frustrated as well. So this is what we are trying to encourage, especially the regulator. For them, they provide us with a level playing ground. They don't have any business somehow to come and run business applications. Let them provide a framework, the standards, and now for us, as long as the regulation framework encourages innovation, the private sector, the business, and the government sector, other industry players as well, we will not only have issues of compliance, issues of this and that, we will promote innovation within the ICT and also within the cybersecurity as a sector. I have just tried to summarize in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you. So you, regulator on board. Just to ride on that. Now, what are the strategies you'll advise organizations that they can leverage on to ensure compliance? And how can the regulator come in, therefore, to assist this organization to ensure compliance to cybersecurity regulation?
Yeah, before we go to the strategy,
yes.
Fred has talked about, the importance of collaboration, actually, because you said we work symbiotically. So, at the authority, we've come up with a framework which we consider both private and I needed to say this, Boniface, sorry,
yes.
Which we've considered both private and government, because cybersecurity is not a standalone. We have to work together. Gone are those days when you say, oh, my house has failed, my office, I've put, very tight security and etc. Now, the borderless nature of cybersecurity is actually pushing everyone. So if, as you've seen that most of the attack, as far as you have a machine somewhere, you can access even data. I think the speaker who was here speak about now the issue about APIs. APIs are the next network. So it's very important to collaborate. And at the authority, we have established a framework through National KSAT, where we have people from different, Fred said that is one of our members, where we give, we share information on cybersecurity intelligence. We share in real time with our members. The members are from government, both from government and private. Okay, so about the strategy, one of the strategy is risk assessment. You have to start. You have to know what do you have. You have to audit what you have to know your landscape. You have to do risk assessment. Okay, so that one is very important. Another one is, one of the strategy is, you can have the best technology in this world, but if you don't empower your users, both technical and the normal users, then you'll have problem. So creating awareness is a key. Training your users on daily basis, because if you don't do awareness, believe me, even if you have the best of the technology, utaanguka. So you have to consider, I know most of us, we are technical here, as far as you have the capacity and everything, most of the time we tend to leave out users. Users are key. They are very important. As much as we do the technical upgrade of our skills, so we have also to make sure that we create awareness. So another one is on information sharing. It's very important. One of the strategy is sharing information within the common. If you have like a common mandate, for example, we have a sector like the Kenya Bankers Association sitting our members. So whenever they have issues, I can give an example. Whenever they have issues, they have a way of sharing, a framework of sharing those information. Why? If one bank X is attacked with, for example, a certain malware, so they will going to share with the other members so that they will going to patch and they will not be vulnerable. So information sharing is very important. So, and the other one is the most important is to have policies and standards in terms of even handling those sensitive information. So policies and standards are very important. Access level controls, very important. Multi-factor authentication, very important. I think they have talked a lot about issues of, deep security. So I don't need to go back to it. Thank you.
Okay. I go to my right as judge. I got it right now. Okay. Now this pain point and the thin line. I show you these are a very big pain point for CISOs. Balancing between protecting sensitive information, the company's bottom line, and compliance. How will you advise, how can CISOs go about it? Because as they say, you just go to justify to the executives that we put up this kind of protection mechanism. Then tomorrow you are hit, and you are supposed also to report about compliance at the same. Companies exist for a specific purpose, either to make profits, they must be a bottom line, or to provide a specific service. So cybersecurity, most of the time, will come. So how do CISOs come in these issues of compliance with legal regulatory requirements?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Very interesting question. So I just draw from my experience with the companies that I've worked with and the compliance regulations or compliance requirements that we've had vis-a-vis what CISOs, and we are castigating CISOs a lot. I believe there's so many here. Nothing personal, just saying it's the way it's really said, the way CISOs look at security. So many a time the CISO will look at the security posture of the organization from a practical point of view. They know what the issues are, they know what they need to do to keep the landscape safe and therefore to keep their jobs. Because with every exploit, of course, a CISO loses their job in many parts of the world, including this one. But how I would say we have hacked it for at least the last two organizations I've worked with is to look at combining these two things in a security program. And a security program that, as a previous speaker said, is risk-based. So you look at what regulation says, or what regulation requires, and you break that down into actionable points or actionable items that can be implemented in your infrastructure, in your space. Then you look at yourselves as an organization, what you are considering as priorities based on your exposures. You see, like I was regulated by the CBK before. CBK will come in and say that you need to have encryption, for instance, as a standard across. But at the simplest of points, encryption can be as long as the data is just not in clear form. But who's talking about the keys? Who's talking about how they are secured? Who's talking about who has access to everything in your environment? Nobody's talking about. The regulator just said encryption or something. So you look at it as a CISO, you look at it from your point of view as an organization, and with your cybersecurity program, the items that you've prioritized for that year or for that quarter of the year, then you bring in regulation for compliance's sake, just to make sure that if a regulator comes in and asks you the questions and asks you how are you doing this, then you have the answers. Why am I saying this? Because for most people, for most organizations, the primary thing to do is to comply, to show that you're complying, so much so that you forget to protect your environment. And that has hamstrung so many organizations, because the regulator will come in, and if we are not complying, our license will go. But if a breach happens, we can always manage it as a CISO. And that, for me, has, at least from my experience, I've seen it as a very backward way of looking at compliance.
Thank you. Lewis, is regulation, does it mean just checking the boxes?
Not necessarily. It's a good question you ask, whether it's just ticking the boxes. But I want to give it a different twist, which is, on one hand it's compliance, and on the other hand is security. Can these two coexist? And I want to build on what he's saying, that then the focus can be so much on complying, which is ticking the boxes, we are correct, but we're not secure. But then why would I want to comply? Obviously, it's the risk that I face for being shut down, but it's also at a risk of employee experience, service delivery. It's at the risk of all those, that you've shut all these plugs that leave very little room for innovation, as one of the panelists was saying. So the two, in my view, in our view, can be tackled in tandem. But what we are seeing is, yes, push towards compliance, at the risk of what I was saying. But in our view, the two can coexist. Now, it's not lost, because then the question should be, how are we moving forward? Or how can we ensure that the two is happening, right? So if you look at any regulation, all these, they're based on some particular standards, international standards. They've informed our thinking, they've informed CS thinking, they're informing obviously the CBK in this particular case, even if it's SASRA. It's based on, I was looking at the Data Protection Act, it's not too far from GDPR, right? So since the international standards are there, and they've put some sort of level framework for us to comply with, it is indeed possible then to have like templates that we can easily follow. And those are out here in the markets for us to follow, to be able to comply and at the same time be secure.
Okay. Wahome, it's said in some quarters that we are not evolving, our legal regulatory framework is not evolving as fast as the cyber threat landscape. We are, I think, a step behind. We keep on following. We are reactive. We are not proactive. So how can we position ourselves? Is it true, first of all? And then if that's the case, how can we position ourselves to be more proactive and not be reactive?
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I agree with my colleagues. When you look at that, cybersecurity changes so dynamically, and of course it's predicated upon the growth within the ICT. Unfortunately, if we also refer to the legislations, the regulations, the laws which are there, if you go back to EU, they have something that they call innovation principle. And what it does is that before a law comes up, or before a new legislation, before an amendment is done, they anticipate that in the next 2 or 3 years, are we going to expect new innovations? Still, I refer back to innovations, because there are some things that we may not be able to anticipate in the next 2 to 3 years. And if the current laws and the regulations, this being the subject matter, if the law has not anticipated that in the next 5 years, the government offices are going to be occupied by artificial intelligence, then if that was not factored into that specific law, that will become a real threat, but there will be no basis of providing protection, safety, because the current law as per then did not factor in the rapid growth of technology, the rapid growth maybe in cybersecurity. And so if we refer back to how do we come up with legislations, what is the stimulus for us to come up? Now we have Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act. How sure are we that we are now getting into digital transformation? What is the basis? Which framework are we going to, which framework is going to guide the government as they implement the digital transformation to ensure that we do not jump into the digital transformation, then in the next 5 years, what we have done is that we have created a haven, a safe haven for more hackers, for more crimes. Why? Because the current legal framework, Computer Misuse, the Data Protection Act, did not put into consideration of the digital transformation that will come in the next 5 years. For instance, we have said currently the BRS, the business registration component of eCitizen, it has been down for like 2 weeks. This is something that affects a common Kenyan. We can talk about cyber threats and all that, but this is a service that affects the common man out there. And we are getting into 5,000 business applications into that system. Yet, we have not been able to sustain the uptime of the same system. To sum it up, we have to make sure that even when we are thinking about legislation, the frameworks, the standards, we try to anticipate due to the rapid nature of cybersecurity and IT.
Thank you. And just to what you're saying, pretty much agree with you. Look at even our computer misuse and cybercrime law. It was enacted in 2018. Is when the regulations are being drafted. So it means maybe the regulations are already coming to already stale legislation that is almost requiring an update. Now, collaboration is a very key thing in this. To create a cybersecurity posture, we can't overemphasize on the element of collaboration. So as a regulator, how are you promoting? What mechanisms are you putting in place to ensure there's a collaborative framework for all these industry players to ensure a cybersecurity posture?
Thank you very much. Just to add on what Fred has said, for the comfort of maybe the people in here, the government is in the process of drafting regulation, as you said, and they will take into consideration, the latest technology and all that. So actually, they have started. So of course, it is. You talked about collaboration. Let me now come in with that. So it is a multi-stakeholder committee which draws its members from different organizations. And you talked about, maybe I've already mentioned about SAT, but now I can also go back and say something about it. So at the SAT, how we promote collaboration is at the SAT, we have members. These members are from different organizations. We have government agencies, we have law enforcement, we have people from, we have PESPOC, we have Kenya Bankers Association, we have academia through KNET. We have also the utility service providers. So what we do is that we have, there is a representative from all those stakeholders who meets every quarter to discuss, even not only quarter but on day-to-day ad hoc. So they discuss issues related to cybersecurity. We also train them on technical. We've just trained them in a number of technical skills, from hacking, incident handling, CISA, CISM. So we even pay for them up to even doing exam. I know there are some people inside here, so who are beneficiaries. So we promote as much as possible. Creating awareness is very important. Sharing intelligence related to cybersecurity, very important, so that now you can patch your vulnerability, you can patch your systems up to date. Creating awareness is one thing, so that's how we support. Another thing is also we sponsor innovation. We have a research center where we usually, talk about research. One thing I've realized that most of us here, we are very keen in, making sure that our space is secure. But now doing the research has been left behind. So, and every day we have new technology, new vulnerability, new system coming up. how are we going to cope up with that? So it is very important. We have the culture of research in this country. Thank you.
Okay. Now, George, even as a person, we've talked about collaboration, and collaboration comes with sharing information. And we've learned from even the previous presentation, the sharing of information in sector industries is becoming a very big issue in enhancing our cyber secure posture. What can organizations do in a specific industry sector to just ensure that there is that element of a level of transparency in sharing information? Even let's say if you look at the banking sector where you are required to share maybe information, people share what they think is safe to share. That's what happens, and you'll agree with me. People share what they think is safe for them to share, that they'll not get a lot of penalties or reprimand. But how can we now be able to enhance that element of sharing information within our sector? Yeah.
Thank you. Again, just drawing from experience, I like what CBK did for payment service providers and banks. Basically, their guidelines in this space. It is very difficult for organizations that are competing in the market and also collaborating in the market to share everything. Of course, you can't share your exploits, you can't share all that information. But then that information is very valuable for industry. So with the Cybersecurity Guidelines 2019 for PSPs, for instance, for the CBK, we were given requirements. We need to report any breaches within 2 hours of each happening. You just say, hey, there's something happening in our servers or in our environment. We don't know what's happening, but we're just reporting that. Then we're investigating within 24 hours, have at least some root cause analysis, give them that, and then you give them that at the end of the month. And at the end of every month, you need to report that. And then there's a quarterly one, half-yearly one, and even end-year one. So you can report one thing like several times. They will analyze that information. They will pick learnings from that information. Then they will, this is a very difficult word, is it pseudonymous? Make it, pick the lessons from it without pointing at the organization. Say that these are the attacks that we are seeing in our landscape, in our country, and then feed that back to the PSPs or feed that back to the companies in that space that are sharing that information. That way, the regulator has come in, has made it a fair level playing ground, has made it a ground where you are free and comfortable to share information, and that information is being used to then edify you, not to be attacked or not to be exploited going forward. So I think as organizations themselves, there's always something you're holding behind your hand, behind your back, because you know you're competing. But when you bring in the regulator to act as that, and if they're a fair regulator, of course, to act as that player, that aggregating player, then it works very well. And I've seen it work for us.
Okay, thank you. It's been said, Kenya, we are very, we lead in terms of digital transformation and adoption of technology. Our digital footprint within Africa and even the world is on a higher scale. But when it comes to regulation in this industry, we lag behind. Like in East Africa, we were the last one to enact the Data Protection Act, regulations and laws. So, Lewis, is a question of yes or no. Do you think our legal regulatory framework as regards to cybersecurity is adequate or is inadequate?
You're setting me up. I'm a father to many. I would say this is very political. So there are efforts,
yes,
but there's room to improve on those efforts.
Okay.
But whether we are last or not, I think in terms of responding, I think we have a capable army that is represented here to be able to comply. And for me, both compliance and security. We cannot detach those two. And I also want to give them the comfort that there is capability for us to make the journey easier, right? And it would be remiss of me not to pick up on what the lady panelist is saying, that it starts with just an assessment, right? But what we are finding missing, leave alone the legal part, is following up on the gaps that are identified. So it is upon ourselves here, the army that is the cyber army, let me call it that way, to ensure that we are driving the compliance ourselves, right? So it's not lost. Whether there's regulation or not, I think there's a capable army of cyber army in Kenya that can assist us with both security and compliance.
You should try a career in politics. You've tried a very politically correct answer. So I'll open the floor for questions. I think there's a mic there. Questions. I'll start with my friend here. You can direct it to a specific individual, or you can just direct it to the panel and they can answer. Yeah.
So I want to direct my question to probably George or Fred. Fred, it's good to see you. Let's talk about, because George, you talked about the issue to do with organizations just complying to check boxes, yeah, and they're not really implementing the recommendations so that they can become secure. But can we look at it a different way? Supposing, could it also be the fault of the auditors, and by extension the regulators? Because I'll give you an example. An auditor comes in and assesses the environment, and they tell you, for instance, you need to upgrade to the latest version of PHP. But at the back of it, upgrading to the latest version will have compatibility issues for some of your applications or your environment or your platforms. So the external auditor has just come and told you, do the upgrade, but they should have sat down with you to probably tell you why haven't you upgraded yet. And so when you give the reason, it's because of my applications, then you now get a workaround from there. So my question is, do you think then the fault, some of the fault comes from the end of the auditors and the regulators in such a situation?
There's another question. So I take that first. Or?
Yeah, you take that first one. Then
okay, so let me take that one first. Thank you for that question, Francis. In my many years of audit, and I don't know if it was directed to me because I've been an IS auditor for a total of 13 years before I moved into risk. One thing I came to realize is that auditors, and it's probably this part of the world, create that, I don't know whether to call it the fear of God in auditees. And I don't know why. Because I have come to learn that meaningful conversations with a sober-minded auditor will come to a solution. Nobody has the solution. Nobody has the answers. Nobody has all the answers. So when I come in and say that you need to upgrade you to the latest version of Windows, for instance, and you're running a legacy database, flat file and everything, and it can only run on Windows 2002 server, nothing beyond that. Let us discuss what are the compensating controls. What, for instance, have you done to ensure that that environment, as much as its legacy, in its entirety, has been secured? It's not, well, I'll come with the latest version of the OS because that's what I would expect. But now, as I come to your environment, which is unique, let us have that discussion. And that also goes to regulators. And again, I say, I like the two regulators I've worked with in the past. They open up a room, you sit and discuss what is it that you need to do to be secure. We know the baselines. We know, latest OS, latest what, patched up. But what is it that you need to be secure and continue doing business today? So once you turn that discussion to that, then there's progress for everyone.
Okay. Yes. Then the next question can move into as Ahmed takes the question.
Okay. Thank you for that question. As we serve our customers, every time they request maybe for data protection, consultancy, or cybersecurity assessment, we try to sit down with them to really get, why do you want this? And it is surprising that most of organizations within Kenya, they just want to comply, and that's it. In fact, they are very ready to if there's a way that they can get that certificate of compliance, for instance, the data protection license, if there's a way they can just get it, that's it. Why? They want to display it at the entrance, on the website, that they have complied. But for us, somehow we are unable to do that. We are unable to get into such a conversation with them. Why? There's aspect of value-driven and compliance-driven. So you can either choose the compliance-driven, where it is more of, let's say, self-seeking. So you are looking at your own interest as a company. You don't want the regulator to come and ask you, why have you not complied to data protection? When you look at the other side, now we are speaking of digital transformation. One of the elements of digital transformation is customer experience. So if you are trying to assess the security and all that, if you do not have a customer at heart, then you'll just be driven by your own interest as an organization. For us, yes, we want to comply, but we want to comply so that we can improve the measure of our competitive advantage. But we do not care about what the customer gain or not. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the question. Then I'll take at least from one lady, let the gentleman take, and then from one lady. And then, because the guys don't have give a chance. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Mine is on the other side of the coin to what he was asking. We've always had this issue between CIOs and CISOs. Having been audited by George for a few years, there is so much. There is the regulator, data protection, there is the auditors, then there is your CFO, and currently I think I have more than 20 solutions, which are just cybersecurity solutions. So where do we really get it enough? And the biggest challenge I'm having is these siloed solutions, in that one vendor will bring you solution X, which is not good enough for vendor Y. So it's more of a question to the vendors as well as the regulations. Where do we get it enough?
Okay, fine. I'll allow Lewis and Gushu take that question. Then you can take the questions, then with the answer. You can take the question, then they answer the two questions. Then Madam, you will after you.
So mine's probably a suggestion more than a question. We've had a previous session and a couple of queries came to mind, and I would just like to expound, especially based on this. So I was wondering, where are the regulators? And it's great we can see the regulators here. However, I think we have quite a lot of good laws. We borrowed our data protection from the GDRP. But our problem is we don't go around and actually implement the basics, the housekeeping we were talking about. For example, in any entity that's gone digital, there will be a mushrooming of about 10 or 20 cyber cafes where you have to go copy something, print something, which you then take back to the office. To me, such like things are the doors that are probably being used as it is. I don't need to do anything tech. I don't need to do anything, out of this world. All I need to do is to hang around the entities. So part of that problem, I think, is internal. As much as we've got the laws, how do we encourage our, especially public entities, to make sure they take security, practical security, not just in the documents, not just passing the exams, not just going through the various courses, but how do you actually get on the ground and implement them and make sure that the general public is served? Because I think that's where the problems kick in.
Okay, Lewis, you'll take that the first question, and then you'll take the other question. And then I'll only take one more question, please. The other questions, I think we can take them to the panelists when we do the lunch. I think you can. Okay, proceed.
Thank you. My name is Mabea from Dad Innovations. I have a question for the good lady from CA. Would you kindly update us on the status of the USF funded projects, specifically on assistive technologies So I'm asking this because of the impact we need to have in terms of assistive technologies at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Nice.
I would have wanted Mabea to say when it's enough, like he said from a compliance perspective, but I guess you'll chime in on that. And a lot of you may have heard my submission on when it's enough. I think the first thing is, let's identify where the gaps are. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. But establish where the gaps are and put measures, prioritize those. Put measures that are prioritized to close of those gaps. And those will be very different from one organization to the next. And once we've done that, then identify someone you can partner with, or partners that you can partner with. Yesterday I had this conversation around the waffle. I gave the analogy around a waffle and how we keep on piling in capabilities around that. So look who has the biggest waffle that you can get, because the honest truth is that there is no one vendor here who will solve all your problems. So I realize that. I know you realize that. So once you can know who you can go longest mile with, then I guess that's where you put your investments in, because the value for that then is apparent. The value is the overheads around you maintaining, keeping, training, learning, and relearning this, and also who can help you quickly sort of comply, right? Because like the honest truth, and I said these are, or I intimated on these, is that they are templates to comply to what? GDPR, to CBK requirements, to NIST, to whatever these frameworks that are out there. As vendors who are in this space, then we are saying we can hold your hand and you achieve quicker. So see who you can get to the longest while, and then use a template. Then you can build on that, because the honest truth is there's no one that is 100%. I don't know whether I've answered when it's enough, but I would love to hear when. I think it will already be enough when the regulator says you're good, right? So let me put pressure on her.
Okay. Gufu, can answer the two questions?
Oh, the two questions.
Yes, they are directed to you. They are directed to you directly.
Oh.
There is one. How does the regulator? Yes.
Although he said it's just comments, but I can answer. It's okay. So he's saying that most of the government facilities,
yes.
He's talking about like we don't have they don't have printers or something, so they have to set up like a cyber cafe where when you need government services, you have to go to that cyber cafe to print a form or something. So I would like to take this opportunity to comfort Mr. Vincent that, as you know, Kenya Kwanza government is in the process of digitalizing. Why are you laughing? It's in the process of digitalizing our services. So, of course, all those pressures will be taken into consideration. And one thing I also want to mention is that even if we are in private or even in government, no system is 100% secure. I hope all the technical guys here agree with me. Why? Because even in Kenya, we don't, most of the time, we don't manufacture this equipment. So we have to ship it from out of the country. So the vulnerabilities, as much as you can check, because of the dynamism of those systems and also the hackers, the cyber criminals are always on our toes. So it's not only the government, also the private. So, but please be assured that with this digitalization, something will going to change. Thank you.
Okay.
As for the lady, since that question is specific to you, I would like to take this offline with you, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'll turn to the MC the program. Thank you.
Asanteni.